parents are Randy and Diana Robertson, and a lesson that I learned from my father happened through an experience when I got my patriarchal blessing. My father gave the opening prayer for my patriarchal blessing, and in the prayer he mentioned balance, and then the patriarch included that in my blessing and said how important that would be to always maintain a balance in my life. And so it's something I've reflected on throughout my life every time I read my patriarchal blessing.
I'm going to go off script and just ask you, why do you think that was good advice for you?
Balance?
Yeah.
Because I probably haven't achieved it yet. Most of my life has been dedicated to work, and probably through my experiences in life and having to work and stuff. And so there's been a lot of times where I don't feel like I've had that balance, and it's just weighed heavily on the work side instead of enjoying life side. Being a father has changed me by learning lessons that I think help me relate more to how our relationship with God is. And I don't think I would have learned them without being a father. And not all those lessons have been wonderful and happy times. Some have been very hard and challenging. And I think that's why families are so important in the gospel, so that we can learn those lessons to become more like our Father in heaven. Well, it's ongoing. Like most people who start off in life, they have a certain vision of what they might see with their life doing, and mine's not been that way. I started web development right when I returned home from my mission. I was fascinated with it, and my dad had an advertising agency, and so he did print. And I discovered how to do web development and taught myself, and I started getting more and more jobs just doing web development, and I've worked for a few .com companies, and I just turned it into a career without finishing college, which has always been kind of a regret. I did finish college in 2017, kind of late in life. I have been working at the same place for the past, it'll be 22 years this December, and that's the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. And I've done mostly support for the websites and IT, and then after I got my pilot's license, I added on the drone pilot license that you can get from the FAA. And so I started working with the company flying drones as well. That was just kind of volunteer, it was never an official position.
For the Southern California Water District?
Yeah, Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. And that company is the company that imports water from the Colorado River to Southern California. So we don't sell to individuals, we sell to companies, or not companies, but the counties that sell the water to the individuals. So we're the wholesaler, and we own the aqueducts and the pumping plants and control all that flow of water and treatments and stuff. So I was born a member of the church and have always believed in it. And there's been times and challenges in my life that I could have used as an excuse to possibly move away from the church, but I never did. It's just always something I believed in. And I don't think the journey ends until your life's really over, because there's always something you're learning. And there's never been one defining moment. My journey and my testimony have been lifelong through experience. But I've gone through some difficult times, but I've never lost faith or left the church due to those difficult circumstances. And so I've always been a believer, I guess you can say.
Do you want to share anything about some of those difficulties?
I think getting divorced is hard in life, and then getting divorced in church is even harder. And so that's a challenge, because you start getting judged by people who you thought were your friends, and there's challenges that you never quite expect. And sometimes when you get married in the church and you do it the way you were brought up, like, serve a mission, get married in the temple, and do these things, you always feel like, well, I did it right, how come this isn't working? And so that was one of the times where I felt like my testimony was challenged, but ultimately I said, no, I know this is true no matter what happens, you know. And that was the beginning point of my life where I started learning some big lessons, and each one was a challenge, but ultimately it in the end strengthened my testimony, overcoming the challenges. On a positive side, I would say choosing to serve a mission sort of sets a foundation. I think that's why it's so important for young people in the church to serve a mission. I think it's a huge foundation building aspect that you can have in the gospel. And I think the other fork was going through the divorce and all the challenges that presented. And, not to reiterate, but those experiences, how they helped me grow and solidify my testimony. I guess how I ended up here, COVID was a fork. I had lived in Utah working for one of those .coms I mentioned earlier, and I really missed the ocean, and I moved back, and I thought, I love the mountains, but I really like the water more. I don't think I'll ever move away from the ocean again. And when COVID hit, I was actually living on a boat on the ocean, and that was nice, but became too small for 24/7 living. We had built the cabin in Bryan Head, so we decided to move to our cabin during COVID, and we just really liked it. And some things happened with my son where he wanted to go to college early. He got into SUU and was going there, but we didn't want him driving up and down from the mountain in the winter and stuff. And so we ended up finding this house, and everything fell into place to be here. And we never thought, it was never in our plan to move here, and it just worked out to where both Bernadette and I felt like this was what we needed to do. And so here we are. For me, it would have a little bit more faith and belief in myself. Trust in the process of the things I should be doing. Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't go to college right after my mission. My patriarchal blessing mentioned something about finishing my schooling after the completion of my mission, and I didn't do that. And I feel like I've kind of missed out on some blessings because I didn't follow my patriarchal blessing that way. And I just wish I believed in myself more, instead of maybe just following a path that became more easy because it just kind of fell into that, instead of saying, no, I need to do my plan. So I kind of wish I did that different that way. I want to be remembered as a disciple, a good husband, a good father, probably a guy with too many interests.
I'm curious about, if I can ask,
Please.
Sure.
how you met Bernadette, a little bit about the history of
How we
your
met?
marriage, your relationship.
Sure. So I got divorced from my wife, and I was working at Metropolitan. She started at Metropolitan, and there was about 5 or 6 of us at work that were just hanging out all the time as friends and doing stuff. And going through the divorce was hard, and I wasn't really looking to get into another relationship. After being in a bad one, you just don't know what to expect. But because I think we were in an environment where we were friends, I felt like I wasn't trying to impress her, she wasn't trying to impress me. There was no sort of, I think, a typical type of behavior when you're first dating, feeling like you need to impress somebody. And I just got to know her as a person without the pressure of trying to make a relationship out of it. And so I felt like I married a good friend. When we eventually started dating, it was natural, and it was just being with a friend. And it's continued to be that way. We've been married 16 years now. And she's still my best friend, and it's been hard because she's not here right now. And so that's been a challenge, but we are still very communicative, and we did everything together. We were working together. We would do all our activities together. And when I was divorced, my boys were really young, and they love her. They always called her mom, like even from a young age, and she considers them like her children. So It's just been it's interesting for me because I went through something that was difficult and horrible to something that was way better. So I have a good vision of how bad things can be and how good things can be. And so I'm very grateful for her.
Oh, I have another one.
Go for it.
Tell us about the vision you have for a nonprofit, the kind of nonprofit charitable work you want to do sometime in the future.
Even though I haven't really enjoyed emphatically my career at Metropolitan, but we won't go there, it has afforded me to be able to retire early. So we're looking at retiring next year. And I felt like I had a lot left to give, and I wanted to control something more that was from me and what I wanted to do. And Bernadette and I have been able to travel a little bit, and I love small tropical locations in the world. And every single one of these locations, they don't have infrastructure to deal with plastic waste. And you see plastic waste washing up on shores that aren't even from there. Like they come from all over the world, and the ocean currents pick them up and just dump them on these remote islands. And they don't have infrastructure to deal with it. And so my idea was to develop a plastic recycling plant inside of a 20-foot container. And that way it can go to all these little locations because they can't accept anything bigger than a 20-foot container. I've discussed it with my friend in New Zealand, and he's got connections in the Cook Islands that he thinks we can put one there as our first one. And so I've been trying to work on that a little bit to try to transition into that once we retire and kind of focus more on that, so I feel like I'm doing something worthwhile. I can list out a bunch. I grew up loving to draw, so I like paint and photography. Some of the photography in here is stuff I've shot, and these little paintings around are paintings I've done. But if you just take a section like ocean, surfing, scuba diving, sailing, mountain bike, motorcycle, razor, camp. I have an airplane, so I fly. Just lots of things I like to do. Mexican. I really like Siargao in the Philippines, and I really love New Zealand. It's kind of hard to pick a favorite place. There's lots of places I like for different reasons. That changes because I think it's at the time that I need an answer and I find one, then that becomes like a favorite scripture. But at other times I'm just reading and something comes out to me like, hey, you need to listen to this, then that. So I think that changes for me. It's just whatever affects me at the time I need it, I guess. I like a lot of different hymns. Sometimes I like the energetic stuff and sometimes I like the more reverent type, but Spirit of God's always a good one.
I think it's because he is honest and very kind. He is very dependable as well. We were friends for a while before we started dating, and I just noticed that that he is whatchamacallit, that he's just different from the friends that we have. He says what he means, and there's no guile about him. And also, he is really a man of integrity. So he lives his faith. Before, when we would hang out, my friends and I, and with him, we used to go out and have fun. And he would hang out with us, but he would never compromise his belief. And that was really something that was very attractive. I was very attracted to. Also, no matter how hard it was for him, whatever it was he was going through, he just held on to his faith. He just never faltered. even though there were so many things that were hurtful that were being said about him, he was just, very, very strong, and I really, really admire him for that. And I love him for that. I believe that it really strengthens our relationship. The other things that you need to know about Aaron, even though I wasn't at the initial interview, is that he's very supportive. We haven't been together for a very long time. He's very supportive of me, taking care of my mom. We've been apart for a long time, and I know it's been very difficult for him, but he's still very supportive. He doesn't want to give me any stress, doesn't show it very much, so I really, really appreciate that. Also, he's very creative. He can paint, he can sculpt, and also he's very super handy, so it makes it so easy for me. He does a lot of projects at home, saving us a lot of money because he can do a lot of things, and he loves to create, he loves to design, and he's very good at it, and I'm very, very fortunate. And he's very loving and kind, and I know that I'm super blessed to have him for my eternal companion, and thank you for highlighting him. Bye.